Leadership is the art of giving people a platform for spreading ideas that work. Welcome to DC Local Leaders, the podcast where we talk to C-suite leaders within the DC area. Our guests share their pathways to success and the important moments that impacted their careers. Lean in as we get the inside scoop on how they are shaping their industries, how they lead, manage, and connect with others. From the sectors of aerospace, defense, tech, IT, and more, this is Local Leaders. Your host has been making meaningful connections with industry leaders for over 15 years. Here's Philip Nathram.
All right, DC Local Leaders, we're back with another episode. I'm your host, Philip Nathram, and today we're going to be chatting with Heather Combs, the CCO of 3Pillar Global. I'm really excited about this episode. I had a fantastic chat with her. She's a great storyteller and just shares openly about leaning into fear, both professionally on the monkey bars as opposed to the corporate ladder, or just continuing to pivot in her personal life and try new things, do new things, because you never know what it's actually preparing you for and what the message is going to be. So great mentor to other women around her. She's been mentored and continues to grow. She's got aspirations beyond where she is now. She just continues to work on that skill set, and she shares all of that with us today. Also want to tell everyone that we've got some exciting news coming up here. We are partnered. DC Local Leaders is now partnered up with Northern Virginia Technology Council, and we are going to be hosting a series of talks with NVTC called Talk Tech, and we're going to be talking some tech. It's exactly what it sounds like. Every month, we're going to have a new episode where we talk to the business and innovation and technology leaders right here in the greater Washington, D.C. area. So for more information on that, please check out Northern Virginia Tech Council's website, nvtc.org. That's nvtc.org. Or you can find them on Twitter at Nova Tech Council. Thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed, rated, reviewed. Check us out on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple, and even Notecast. If you're unfamiliar with Notecast, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a podcast listening app that allows you to take notes right from the app. As you're listening to Heather today, if she mentions something that you want to make sure that you remember, simply tap the screen where it says transcribed. It will make an audio note for you as well as transcribed an actual copy of the notes. It can be emailed to you or you can store it in your phone. You can also go back to the clip and just listen to it in audio form. Whatever you choose to do, Notecast has you covered. It's a veteran-owned technology company, so check them out today, and let's get into the episode. All right, well, we're here with Heather Combs of 3Pillar Global, recently named Chief Commercial Officer, former COO. And what's the difference between those two?
Great question. In my day-to-day life, not a whole lot because of the evolution of how we got here. So I've been in 3Pillar for 4 years, and I started as I started as a consultant to the business, and I could talk about how that wound up happening if you want. And then I was the chief revenue officer for the last 3 years. Well, the first, 2 years. And then when the company recapitalized with CIP and we were going into a new structure and with sort of new goals, I moved to the COO position to really work on the operational side of the business, to make sure that we had the foundation of the house to do these acquisitions, to be able to integrate them, to be able to grow at scale. And then across the course of the year, we were unable to hire the right commercial leader. And we realized that by dividing out the operational shared services aspects of commercial enablement and commercial operations from our P&L owners, the people who really run our verticals and the business, we had created silos that we didn't intend to create. And so in that absence of the right other leader, we had pulled him back together with me doing that. And we found that just really worked, that the efficiency was better, that the team had better alignment, that we were clearer on what our goals were going forward, and decided that that's the plan we would stick with for 2021 now. And so updated the title accordingly because and COO implies so much about the internal aspects of the business. And I think Chief Commercial Officer really tells the truth of the story, that I'm market facing, looking out at how we're growing both organically, and then how do we integrate these new businesses into our business model and growth plan, and how do we take really good care of the clients that came with those acquisitions.
But you started as a consultant, you said?
I did. I was with CEB, now Gartner, for over a dozen years. And when I left that business for the 5 years that followed, I really went through other organizations, helping them do something along the growth path. Revenue acceleration, whether that was entering a new market, whether that was changing a pricing structure, whether that was launching a new product, doing things that help those businesses grow. And sometimes I was a 1099 and sometimes I was a W-2, but I think in general, think of that phase as consulting. And by the time that I came to help 3Pillar, I was definitely running this little consulting business. I was working for multiple companies and loved it. I was able to help propose solutions and then was not responsible for operationalizing them or the results, which is a great job, right? You give people advice and you don't have to be right. You get to go. And when I came over and was doing that with 3Pillar after a couple of months, I just was in love with the culture of the business. And when they asked if I wanted to stay, I was like, yes, keep me. This is a great place. And so I've now been back in-house full-time for a little over 4 years.
3Pillar Global, everything about you guys just seems so attractive. Everything I read about what you're doing and the things you've done, it's always mentioning the word mindset, and it's all about leadership and growth. And in fact, I walked in today, someone, I don't know who that was, but she was sitting on a chair, was having a conversation on the phone. She acknowledged that I was here, didn't know what I was here for, didn't care. She was going to speak to me and acknowledge that I walked in the door. And then also went back to having her conversation. And what were they talking about? Leadership. And explaining what that is. And I can tell that it was a client-facing conversation, preparing something for a client, and they were sparring with each other maybe or something like that.
It's very true that we live this alternative culture here. The company has a strong presence of its founder, CEO, David DeWolf, and he is a young guy who's been in the community for a long time, who's come up through the software space, who's built the company one day at a time, and has done it while having 8 kids. Yeah. And so this place, it is not an unusual day, pre-COVID, of course, to walk into the office and someone to have one of their kids with them on the way to the dentist, or for someone to take a call from the baseball field, or for someone to say, excuse me, I've got to step out for a parent-teacher conference. And that environment makes it so easy to blend our whole selves into the job. So it is okay that I am also a mom, that I am also a sister, that I am also a friend, that I have other interests and responsibilities, and that on any given day, all of us can bring all of that with us, and that it's not so siloed and separated as it once was.
As part of your company culture, I think one team is a big part of that, right?
Huge. So one team is what you'll hear people say around here is not just a hashtag. It's the mentality that we're all in it together and that we do more together. So the purpose of the company, if you asked David, it would be this awesome story about his middle school years on a basketball team and how he realized, this desire to belong and this desire to accomplish more as a team. And so now the purpose behind the business, his why, is to give people the opportunity to operate at a higher level of success by being part of a team. And so whether that's our delivery team, so just like truly the developers that build products for other companies, or whether we mean that on our leadership team about how do you put a global operating business together? We really mean one team. How do you do it together?
Yeah, you guys just recently did a company-wide event with all 1,600 employees, and you did it, and that's a global employees, and everyone participated.
That's true. That was our first one. We pulled it off. I obviously was sad that we had to pull it off from a recording studio here in Virginia rather than at some awesome live location where we had a number of people together. But we had great employees who some got up very, very early. Some were staying up really late. Thank you to our teammates in India who, I'm sure their families were like, hey, it's 10 o'clock. Why are we listening to this? But we all got online together. We had a DJ kick us off, and we talked about our vision for the next 3 years because, we're on this rocket ship of growth, and then really talked to how does that look in 2021 and what's our goal, and just really motivated and excited us all to get that one team mentality and now the one team is 1,600 people. And by the end of the year, it'll be a whole lot bigger than that.
Yeah. You know, the one team thing is you guys also share a mindset, or you put out a mindset of a product mindset. I've heard that a lot. Mm-hmm. I've seen that a lot.
Product mindset for us is our secret sauce. It's how we build digital software. That said, it's really a take off of the growth mindset thinking in that software is never done. Growth is never done. Mm-hmm. That you're going to continuously iterate and evolve both yourself and your software to meet ever-changing needs of the market, of the customer, of the user interface, of every aspect of it. And so the product mindset is really talking about think differently. It used to be that you would build something from a digital standpoint by putting out an RFP. It had the exact specifications. It said exactly what features you were going to have and how much it had to come in under and in the budget and what timeline. But the product mindset is completely opposite that. It is, let's get started small and let's do this one sprint at a time. Let's put an MVP out there. Let's make sure that we get into a self-funding pattern. So you get users using it and buyers buying it. And then we iterate and we move and we grow and we evolve and we get better. And this is what we do for every one of our customers. So we are all professional services. We don't build anything for ourselves. We build it for the companies you know and love. Okay. So if you recently, parked at a Park Mobile pay station, that's something that we help build. If you watched, or have kids that have watched PBS Kids, Curious George in my house was popular for a long time, or played with any of their apps on an iPad, that's us. Okay. If you have used the mobile site to like Geico car insurance, that's the kind of thing that we build.
And you build the app, you build the interface. Like when you say that you help, like what do you guys?
All of it.
Trying to get an idea of what you guys do.
Right. Well, digital product goes so much deeper than just the interface that you and I touch through the app. That's the user experience aspect of it. And that is one part, and then a super important part, especially you and me as the consumer. But it's all of the software and code behind it that makes things work the way they do. So when you think about something like Park Mobile, that it is combining the inventory of available parking spots to the e-commerce interface to the saving the credit card, passing it along, setting the timer, remembering your car, putting your geolocation in. All of those aspects of software that make it work is what we do.
Yeah. So, and then when you guys use this phrase digital transformation a lot. What does that mean?
What a huge term.
Yeah.
I feel like one day when the history books write, they're going to talk about the time of digital transformation. And it's going to be this, it's like the Industrial Revolution. It's going to be this huge term. But really what it means is when you're changing your business model. So think about the Amazon effect as a great example. There were brick and mortar stores where you walked into a store that carried physical inventory and you selected in that moment from physical inventory, you purchased it there on site, perhaps even with cash, and you walked out with it in your hand. And think how different that is to today when you buy something, probably with your Amazon Prime membership, while you scroll through endless inventory that's sourced from all over the world in a single application. You hit click to buy. Sometimes if you're dangerous enough to use click to buy, because sometimes I've gotten things I didn't mean to click to buy with the one click. And then that is shipped to your home within the time frame you picked. That could be today, same day delivery. That could be 2 days. That is digital transformation. It's where our digital experience entirely changed what was previously another business model, the physical brick and mortar store. So that's just one example. You can think of all the others that are happening for businesses out there. But essentially everything that's on your phone is a digital transformation. Every business that is now doing things that think of it, a back office system would be something like how expense systems work today, where as soon as you run your credit card, it uploads to the reporting mechanism rather than the old school where we used to tape down the receipts on a piece of paper and then photocopy them and then walk them over stapled to the actual, finance department. Yeah, no one does that anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I recently got some accounting software, finally made it to 2021.
Welcome.
Yeah, it's great. I love it being here. So I don't then have to go back and I'm not playing bookkeeper for my business also.
That's right.
And it's because of the software, and it's because it's all digital, and it allows me to do so. Otherwise, I don't know what I would have to keep them in a shoebox and then somehow scan them in, make a PDF, and hope my accountant at the end of the year doesn't hate me.
Yeah, I think the year of 2020, the biggest leaps forward we saw in the digital transformation space. I mean, think about education. How we went from, kids who had to get dressed and catch the bus and walk into a physical classroom and be greeted by someone. And then when that couldn't happen, you had a snow day. You actually, didn't physically have school because there was no other way to communicate with the students if they didn't physically walk into that building. And think about it now, they are doing it online. They have synchronous days and asynchronous days. And when there was snow this week here in the DC area, you just go on because the teachers are teaching from home and the students are learning, at home. And the whole thing has changed.
Yeah. I mean, there was a time where online school was seen as less than, in a way, especially like college and things. You went to online college, it was seen as being less than, like you weren't as well educated, and it wasn't, and I don't know, maybe I felt that way and no one else did, but I think it was a real thing.
I think so too. I think that some of the most interesting things that will come out of the experience of this past year are what did we change in ways like that evolved well past our expectations or the mindset we had around what was possible. I know we were already dabbling in Instacart and grocery delivery before because it's a complicated lifestyle. It's just so much easier. But COVID forced that hand. And even my parents, are now getting their groceries delivered. And I never thought I would see the day because, of course, my mom was very much like, if I don't pick out the banana, how will they get the one right? And, and then you realize, other shoppers are smart also. Someone else can also pick the right banana and bring it to my house. But these just leaps forward in our thinking about what's possible. It's, first of all the digital transformation, but then also just completely expedited by the COVID crisis. I keep seeing statistics, so they're updated every day. You can pick the one to quote, but that have said we have sped up digital technology and digital transformation within 5 months that it would have taken us 7 years otherwise, is the one that has resonated with me. And I absolutely, seeing what our clients are doing now, absolutely believe it.
Yeah.
And forget clients. I mean, love them, all the things they're doing. But when I look at my kids on their school day and how they're doing, science experiments in the 7th grade now online, like everyone has sped up.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about you. I mean, we did talk about 3Pillar, we know, but I want to talk more about you as an individual and how you got here. We got a brief snapshot of doing some consulting, but you got to that point from somewhere. Mm-hmm. So I want to get into all that, but you've got 5 kids.
But I do. I have 5 amazing little girls, a modern blended family. They are such an amazing crew. They are 10, 11, twin 12-year-olds and a 16-and-a-half-year-old, as she would remind me.
The half. It's important.
Yeah,
it's important.
Especially when you're halfway to your driver's license. It's very, very important.
It counts. 15 and 9 months is a very special time.
It is. But I never planned to have a big family. It wasn't something I set out to do in life. I do think I set out to have a big career. I'm from South Texas. I grew up in San Antonio. So I'm from a place that not everyone aspired to a career that looks like this. Yeah. I have a lot of amazing friends who are at-home mothers, which I think is that job is 10 times harder, and I am much less able to do it. Like, let me just say, first of all, I am better at the job I go to during the day than I am at the one at the house. But I went to college, finished in 3 years, went straight on to graduate school in political science and economics. I was at the George Bush School there in Texas. I know
Texas A&M, right?
Yeah, Texas A&M when they opened the Bush Library. And I thought I would go into politics and I would be president. That was the plan. And then I actually went and worked in politics. Up
here in Capitol Hill? Is that how you got to this area from Texas?
That's exactly right. I came working for the congressman from Humble, Texas at the time, and started working in the office here. Then, of course, going back to school in the inaugural class at the Bush School, I got the opportunity to work with the Bush family. 41 was the library's namesake, of course, and was there present with the students. There were 17 of us in the inaugural class. And then 43 was the governor of Texas at the time, and then ultimately ran for office. And several of my classmates came back on the campaign politics or went into the administration. And that, by that point, did not interest me at all. So I spent some time working with Barbara Bush's Points of Light Foundation. And I did what so many 90s college grads did. I did the consulting network. And I wound up saying yes to a company called the Advisory Board. I said yes and set a start date for a couple of months in the future. What I did not understand at that time was that they were splitting with CEB, and CEB was going public. And so just by absolutely sheer luck of the draw, I was assigned to the CEB side into writing research in the HR practice. I mean, on my first day, I peeled the plastic off my desk because they were just opened the new space at 1600 Pennsylvania. And that rocket ship took off. There were 400 of us at the time. And by the time I left, there were over 5,000 employees in 7 international locations and a very big company. And I just got to be there through the evolution. And because of it, huge growth like that offers a lot of opportunity. And I got to weave my way through the company doing lots of different jobs that set me up to be kind of a well-rounded general manager professional coming out of it.
Let's talk about all the lessons you've learned along the way, having the responsibilities that you have or had, and what that's done to prepare you for where you are now. What do you have with you now that you wouldn't have otherwise had you not been in that position?
I think that the nonprofit space, in any kind of public service, even the positive part of my experience on Capitol Hill would be have a purpose, have something greater than the paycheck that you're working for. And I think the paycheck is table stakes, right? Because I did talk about you have to pay rent and you have to pay those school loans back. But you need a why, you need a purpose, you need core values to make it all meaningful. And so I think that the nonprofit sector really gets that right. It really offers to people an opportunity to go invest their life and their work and their skills in a cause.
So, and you learned that lesson before Simon Sinek wrote his book.
Indeed.
Right?
Indeed.
Because that was, so you picked up on that you need a purpose and you need an overall general why. As you navigated through CEB, what were some of the things that you know now that had you not had that experience, even if it was tough at the time?
What I think about all the variety of opportunities at CEB, I think that the big one I take away as a lesson is to say yes. Is to take the job you don't think you're qualified for, to move to the department that doesn't feel like the perfect fit, to stretch yourself in directions that you never saw coming. Just say yes and get there and figure it out as you go. To be a high energy, work hard. I mean, it was an incredible place for hardworking, really intelligent, ambitious, competitive people. So I was always pushed to be the best version of myself there. But the other opportunity was that if you kept following the yes, the doors just kept opening. And so, I mean, I really changed, account management or sales or new product development or being a practice manager, kind of back and forth from the revenue side of the house, the product side of the house. I spent some time as chief of staff learning all of the administrative details that have set me up for today to really understand how a company runs. And I would have never, architected a career like that on paper if someone had asked me, what do you want next? And what's the right step? So I like that analogy of the jungle gym versus the ladder. Think of your career as the jungle gym of moving left and right and up and down and over, because you're getting this well-rounded experience rather than thinking of it as one step forward up some proverbial ladder that goes to what?
So saying yes to things that you think that you're not qualified for. Did you ever feel vulnerable during that time, or what did you do with that feeling? I mean, that the feeling of, I said yes to this thing, but I don't really know what I'm doing.
I feel that way every day.
Yeah.
I still feel that way. The company, when we did these 2 acquisitions this year, nearly doubled in size. And so I still wake up in the morning and say, this is the the biggest revenue goal I've ever had in front of me. This is the biggest team I've ever been responsible for. This is the biggest, opportunity today and the highest expectations. And so I think if you're ever comfortable, you're probably not pushing yourself hard enough. I absolutely love the thinking behind the statement. If people aren't making mistakes, it's because they're not trying hard enough. And so I encourage myself to walk out the door, feel that nervous energy, because I know I'm trying harder in the space, and that those mistakes are exactly the test of, pushing outside your comfort zones.
Yeah, we learn from our mistakes, and that, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, that sort of thing. And I think that goes back to something you mentioned earlier about growth mindset, right? I mean, that's exactly what growth mindset is. It's not that some people are born to do things really well and some people will just never be able to do it because they weren't born that way. You can learn how to do anything.
Right. In 3Pillar, one of our values is continuous improvement, and I use it a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of times in a lot of meetings, I have to say, okay, true to our value of continuous improvement, we're going to get this, right next time, or we're going to do better next time, especially with things moving as fast as they are today. Yeah. When it's growing this fast, the wheels can feel like they're flying off the car. So you just have to keep putting it all back together and working to move forward.
Where'd you get that idea of, treating your career and your life like a jungle gym, or do something that scares you, or say yes and have the yes mindset? Do you have a coach, or did you have a mentor at the time, a mother, a sister, anyone, a brother, someone in your life to?
I think it largely developed along the way about attending women in leadership events, or reading women in leadership books, or being part of that community. You hear a lot about this, that you can't be what you can't see, or that you are going to struggle because women, I think statistically, will apply for jobs only once they have 100% proven that they can do all of the requirements of the job to be done, whereas men will throw their hat in the ring when they only have 70% of it covered. And when you start hearing those kinds of things, and then I look at having daughters, you ask yourself the question of am I part of the problem or the solution? Am I paving the path forward? And the more I would hear those things, the more emboldened I was to be different. So I think about the book Lean In. I know it's had some controversy over the years, but I loved some of the things I heard in it about sitting at the table, about making sure that you were heard, that when you were feeling uncomfortable, just to lean into that feeling, when you were unsure about where your family growth was going to intersect with your career growth, just continue down the path that's in front of you and battle that problem for another day, And so I have felt passionate about making sure that I'm setting this example as I hear more and more of that.
Right. To really live it in your everyday life. Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about that personal life, because do you do that in your personal life as well? Like leaning into fear, try something new every year, things you're working on as an individual, not necessarily professionally, whatever that happens to be.
I do. This is like the skydiving type thing.
Have you been skydiving?
I have.
Me too. Where? Yeah. Where'd you go?
I went just outside of the DC area.
Yeah.
Here. Oh gosh, what's the name of that?
Like Warrenton,
town?
DC skydive, yes, but it's actually in Warrenton, which is kind of
right.
weird, but I get it. Uh-huh. Where else are you going to jump out?
That's exactly right.
What was the experience like?
I thought it was fantastic. Yeah. I immediately wanted to do it again because I wanted to have the experience of knowing what was coming so that I could be more present in the moment. Mm-hmm. Because in the moment, of course, I screamed for 20 full seconds on the free fall, and because you don't know what's coming and you have to experience it all that time. And so I'd like to go do it when I know it's coming, and then I can enjoy the ride a little bit.
Yeah. I love that place. I've gone a couple different times and I had a similar experience. It's all the buildup of what's about to happen and the fear of the future, anticipating what I think is going to happen, and only to find out that the experience is nothing like what I thought it was going to be. Two things I noticed. The plane they take you up in is this rickety old plane that you kind of want to jump out of. Yeah. This janky machine, I'm taking my chances with the parachute. There's duct tape on the door. What are we doing? So it's and then they tell you to kind of just hang your feet over the edge. There's a bar that you have to put your feet on that you can't see. So already, you're experiencing something, you can't see it, you have to trust that it's there, trusting the process, and then it's like, okay, but I'm unsure what this is going to feel like. I'm expecting a whole bunch of roller coaster ride G's when I jump out of this plane. I feel none of those things, right? And I'm expecting it to be really, really loud with the wind blowing in my ear because you're falling really fast, because I weigh a lot and this dude weighs a lot, and we're both falling together because I'm strapped into the middle of him. And it's none of those things. And I learned that, like, I don't always know what I'm up to. Maybe I don't know how scary this future is going to be because I made it all up in my head. The fear kicked in when we pulled the chute. Disappointment and fear. We pulled the chute, disappointment because it was over. Mm-hmm. And then fear of, like, this is when something's going to go wrong. Some bird's going to come along. Like, we need to get down. Like, what are we doing just floating around? Come on. That sort of, and then that was the selfishness of, I know better. This guy, this person here jumps out of planes every day because that's what he does. Mm-hmm. And here I am coaching him on what we need to do. And all I need to do is just relax and we're going to be okay. And guess what? We were on the ground and everything was fine.
Yeah, I had that same experience about once he pulled the chute of feeling a little disappointed that we're halfway through the experience, that you had the free fall and now you're going to do this. Now, luckily, the person I was strapped to, luckily or unluckily, decided that this was a fun day to really, it was a birthday present, first of all. So he knows that I'm there for my birthday, and he starts doing like loops and flips and like really his acrobatic skills, which is a blast on the video in hindsight. But it certainly made me very dizzy. It took a solid hour to get my like equilibrium back once I was on the ground. But I felt a sense of disappointment that the whole thing was over when it was over, because it's like you'll never not know again, and you'll never have that moment where that you were falling first out of the plane. I will say I have stood by this. I don't know if I've got it in me to be the person who could jump. I do think that being tethered to someone else that jumped, where then you have no choice, but you're going with that person,
anyway.
Right, was really the way to do it. Because I look now at people, I've never bungee jumped, but like I look at those people and I think you actually had the ability to step off a ledge.
Yeah, something really. I'm so happy you brought this up. Something really does happen, I think, to an individual when they're put in that position, and that's a leisure thing. We chose to do this. Like, we could have just not done. Like. Mm-hmm. We paid money. We paid them to do this.
Yeah. And signed form after form that said, if I die, you're not
responsible.
Yeah,
it's kind of like I did this to myself, and, it's my own fault. But when you do have to be the one that jumps off and does it anyway, even though it's terrifying, even though it's scary, even though everything about this says it's a horrible idea, it's given me a new relationship with fear in a little bit of a way. Do you feel the same way?
Yes. I think about, so for a little while I did triathlons, and that sounds so much bigger than it is. So like, then that's the entire point, is that somewhere in your head, this is a really, really hard, maybe impossible athletic. I was in Charleston when I started them. I grew up a swimmer. I was a competitive swimmer through high school and picked up biking once I came to DC. Love it. It's still my favorite of the sports. And then I hobble along in something that other people would call running. It is not. And so the way that I compete is that I go out for the swim. I usually finish in the heat ahead of me with the swim, because that's other people's weaker event. And then I hold my own in the cycling portion. I love to cycle. I'm out there, whatever pack I'm in. And then during the phase that everyone else calls running, I just wave to people and cheer them on, because they're all passing me, and right. And their age is written on their calf. So you see the people that pass you, and I have been passed by 7-year-olds and 78-year-olds. Like it's very embarrassing, but I just always like encourage them, you go, there's pancakes at the end. Like I'll be there in a few minutes, and just kind of like holler and stuff. But when I was training for the first triathlon, I had gotten into this group in South Carolina that I was training with, and they were all registering for their event, and people were encouraging me to do it. And I was, I'm not ready. I can't do it. And the coach of the team finally said something to me that made absolute sense, has stuck with me forever. She goes, "What's the worst thing that happens?" And I stood there for a long time, like, what is the worst thing that happens? And she's like, no, really, try to come up with what's the worst thing that happens. And then I was like, well, that I can't do the run, that I'll have to walk. And she goes, that's the worst thing you can possibly think of happening? You're going to have to walk? And I was like, oh, yeah. Wow. Okay, let's do this. Yeah. And sure enough, I've definitely had my break moments in triathlons where I've walked since then. And this great attitude though sets in of like, now to remind yourself, like to ask this question when you're about to do something you're so afraid to do for the first time, like, what's the worst thing that happens?
I love that.
And I have found that if you ask yourself and then you just step out there, you find in almost all these cases, whether it's a triathlon or jumping out of the plane or whatever it is that at the other side of it, you look backwards and you're like, that was not near what I made it out to be in my head.
It's the narrative we're carrying.
Yes. We are convinced it's all harder, bigger, scarier. The first time I came up to Capitol Hill, I thought that working, for the congressman, going into the building, like thought this is going to be this unbelievable job. It's bigger, different, more important than all these other jobs. Of course, I thought that I was, 22 or something. But after a few months, when you're opening the mail and you're running errands and you're getting coffee and you're standing in line at the cafeteria eating terrible food, you realize it's just a job. And those are just people that are in those jobs. And that's been my experience in all of life, is we make it all out to be something in our head that once you do, it's not near as difficult. And I would tell other younger women, especially who are nervous about taking a job that they're scared about or that they've made out to be bigger in their head, this is where get to yes, because it looks scarier than it is.
Is that how you kind of mentor other women in your life and other people around you, by sharing those experiences? And do you have, are you part of a group? Do you do any of that? Or?
I do. In several of the organizations I work in, I do the mentor program, and I have a few folks who've asked me over time formally to be mentors. So I have a group of mentees, and I love them and I learn as much from them as hopefully I give back. And I think that it's great at keeping me sort of grounded and young and energetic. And I hope for them, it gives them something. But I think when I talk to those women, it's always about encouraging them to do things like that. Throw your hat in the ring, say yes, lean in, ask for the promotion, the raise, the opportunity, the project, extend yourself. Right. Those are the kinds of messages for sure.
And what's the worst that could happen?
What's the worst that happens?
They're not going to kill you. They may say no, but that's not all that bad.
Right. And if you do go and do it and it's big and it's hard, it'll be amazing.
A lot of the transformation in mindset that I've had has come from a lot of pain. I wish I was like you, where I just had some sort of internal bellwether that was like ringing for me, and I knew that I could lean in and do certain things. Or, you got it from a number of different places. But a lot of it has been physical activity too. There seems to be some sort of connection between psychology and physiology. And there's a lot of people that talk about that. Tony Robbins talks about that. Doing this thing called 40 races before age 40.
Oh. And
I was talking to another person. He was like, what if you only get 37? Like, last year was a dead year, right?
Yeah.
He's like, what does that mean? And it's, for me, I carry a narrative with me that it somehow means I'm bad or not good enough or incapable or something like that. Doesn't mean anything, because no one knows I'm doing this but me.
Have you read Dan Pink's book, Win? And I'll WHEN, Win, because I know my Texas folk will understand.
I thought you were saying win, like win the game. And I was thinking, she wants me to win the race.
I know, everyone says that. I've got to learn to pronounce it the way you East Coast folks do. But it's all about the science of timing. And it talks exactly about the concept that you're going through, about like, why do we set these milestones at the edges of decades? Or why do we start diets on the first of the year? Or why do we have these like rounded number of goals of like, what is the difference between 37 races and 40 races? Why do we feel more accomplished if it's 40? So you should absolutely read that one. It is. You will also walk away with a few very important life lessons. Like, don't take the surgery slot that's not first thing in the morning, period. Like, just really important life lessons that are like the failure rates in surgery, the mistake rates, like just increase across the day, essentially. And so like never take like the 3:00 surgery.
You want that Dr. Sharp.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, that's, it's similar to, we talked about Simon Sinek in his book, Starting with Why. He's also got one called, it's called The Infinite Game.
Mm-hmm. I just read it over Christmas.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's based on a book from a theologian who wrote Finite and Infinite Games, and it's all about the same thing. Mm-hmm. We're playing these fictitious, when the object is to just stay in the game, just keep doing the thing. But what I was telling you about all of that is that there's some doing these things that are pretty difficult, or usually it's centered around physical activity. I've talked to some other leaders, and they do triathlons, and a lot of it, maybe it's character building, maybe it's just like doing something difficult, or being able to train for a triathlon. You have to show up every day and do something consistently. And that seems to affect leaders in a huge way. Because in your personal life, that has nothing to do with 3Pillar. You're not doing it on behalf of 3Pillar.
No. And in fact, I'm not doing them at all right now because I have 5 kids and a job. But I do think that for me, it's about goal setting. It gives me a chance, another outlet to pick something that I want to aim towards that doesn't hurt anyone else and only benefits me if I get closer. So I don't imagine that I'm ever going to be the fastest at anything. So rather than deciding I'm going to be the fastest runner in the world and working on that, it's this well-rounded concept of, well, I'm going to try these new things. I'm going to go at this from a can I do it standpoint. Can I set a goal and can I accomplish it? And I think that is just analogous to how I run most of my life and probably how I keep finding myself back in a revenue leadership position because I love a good goal.
How do you set your goals? Do you write them down? Do you have a vision board?
I do meditate. I use the Calm app. So speaking of that, I do meditate. I do try to stay grounded in this goal setting, to not let it become consuming of my whole personality, of my whole being, because if you do that, then when you miss one of these goals, the deflation is terrible. So you got to keep it in perspective. I do think I very much have a can-do attitude. I would put myself in the camp of realist over optimist. So, I think working in a public company for, 12 years or 13 years will do that to you because you have to walk that balance of never overshooting. You got to be right. But and I'm not a journaler for mostly the purposes of time, but I listen to the continuous audiobooks, and I read and I digest everything I can, and I'm always taking classes and I go to the conferences, and I just really have an expansive mindset of what can I learn? What can I do better? What can I be coachable on? How can I make that next opportunity work out? And so goal setting just fits in perfectly there. Is that you've learned something new and you decide you want to be better at it, and so you start practicing and you do the work.
Yeah. And do you start seeking out people that can help you get there? And
absolutely,
mentors, and trying to find those. Do you have mentors in your life now?
I do. I certainly do. And they come from all walks of life. So there are the job type mentors, and then there are other women that I look up to for they're fantastic in their families. And there are friends who really have some aspect of their life nailed that I want to be more like. Right now, this year's made me cook more than ever. And so I envy and idolize the women who cook so well. And there's a woman on my team who keeps this master board of what she's going to cook and how she grocery shops, and then how she organizes the week. And I just find myself trying to absorb and learn even a skill like that.
Just, it's easy to think, oh, this is my mentor, so that's going to be the one person that teaches me everything to do. And that's just not true. Yeah. It's like having more than one doctor. I have a dentist for my teeth, and then I've got a physical therapist for the other stuff. And,
that's a good way to see it. I think that you need lots of perspectives, and at different times you really need different specialists who can help.
Yeah. And it sounds like that gives you a great opportunity to turn around and pass that on to other people as a mentor for them too. So speaking of mentors and advice, you're in a very visible position of high responsibility. What advice can you give someone who is maybe technical in their experience? Maybe they're a PMP or they're a UX designer. They're very technical, but they hear you speak. They spend time around you. They want to aspire to do something that you're doing.
I actually think the answer is the same regardless of which lens you come at it from. Is that whenever you see a deficit in any aspect of your skill set or the capabilities you want to have in order to really fit for that next opportunity in any direction, I say, go do the work, go get the experience, go to the class, go to the conference, go meet the person, go read the book, go practice, go volunteer into the opportunity at your own business or in a volunteer position, and put the work in. And so if in that case of what you're saying, if you've got highly technical skills, but you haven't ever led, go coach a little league team, go volunteer at your local, Big Brothers Big Sisters program, and start being a leader there. If you are on the opposite, you've done a bunch of those things. But for me, for example, when I first started working in new product development at CEB, I did not have the skills to read a company balance sheet at the level that I needed to be able to when we were evaluating acquisitions and partnerships. And so that's when I headed back to the booth school and really did my financial acumen classes, and was able to jump forward in those skills because I needed them to be at the table and credible and to really understand what was happening at the next level. And so it's do the work, find the path forward. And there are lots of ways to creatively get there. Inside your company, what I promise is that there will always be someone who will take you volunteering yourself into a project or more work. So just say, this is a skill I want to learn. And I bet you someone around you will say, I got a place that you can benefit me and learn that skill.
Was there ever a time where you felt like you were at a jumping off point? You're uncertain of what to do next, but you know you can't keep doing what you're doing.
You have to go all the way back to my CEB days. For some number of years, I was doing full-time sales. I mean, in the old school style, wear a black suit, get on a plane, rack up your frequent flyer miles, and get off that plane, get in a Hertz rental car, which, by the way, were all, is like champagne colored Mazda 626s at the time. Like, it was this like same sedan everywhere you went. And to do that day in and day out, 4 out of 5 days a week, and sometimes as many as 8 cities to do that. And so you're just living in a plane and living in these rental cars and living in these hotels. And it's just all become a blur. You have forgotten to enjoy it. You're eating the same club sandwich off of the room service menu at every Starwood, hotel, and it doesn't matter anymore. And I had my day where I'm going through the airport and my flight gets canceled again, because, that's how they work. And I just had a complete meltdown of, I can't do it. And I called the office and said, I'm done. But luckily they heard it as, I'm off the road, I'm done. But I really hit this breaking point, had this absolute meltdown in the airport, because I had just gone into that place where you're going too hard, too long, and forgetting to enjoy the ride. You're forgetting the amazing moments that when you're flying to another city or another country, they just stop, be there, find the amazing part of those moments. And just, I think you said earlier at one point, don't think of it as the grind. And I had gotten into that place where it was just the grind and it was just killing my body and soul.
So the last question I have for you, what are you working on now? What do you think future Heather's going to look like?
Yeah, the things I want to be ready for next. I'd like to continue to round out my skills until I'm ready for a CEO position. It's really what my eyes are set on for the next career move. And then between now and then hopefully much longer after that, I'd really like to serve other companies on their board of directors. Yeah. So I have been working the last year and a half or so on board readiness.
Well, if it's been anything like the rest of it, if you keep saying yes, it'll show up. And I really appreciate you sitting down and chatting with us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was great.
Thanks for listening to DC Local Leaders. We'd love to connect with you. Find us on LinkedIn and YouTube by searching DC Local Leaders, on Instagram at DC Local Leaders, or our website, dclocalleaders.com. You can find the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, Google, or wherever you find great podcasts. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. If you're a business leader and have questions on your lease and how it impacts your business's opportunities to grow, or have questions about the market, you can reach Philip directly at philip.nathram@transwestern.com. He'd love to speak with you. Until next time.